Hey, what's going on? Keith from Trigger Happy. Big fan of CZ, and I've personally bought a CZ, and it took me a while to decide which one I wanted. Couldn't decide between the P-07 Duty and the CZ75 Standard, so kind of want to make this video to show you some of my thoughts on why I decided to go with what I went with. The bottom gun is the CZ75. This is the BD version, which stands for, well, it's the decocker version is what the D is for. Standard one being the CZ75B. This is the CZ P-07 Duty. Both of these are chambered in 9mm. Some of the differences straight out of the box. The P-07 Duty obviously is a polymer frame gun, substantially lighter than the bottom one, which is a steel framed gun, quite heavier. This one has a 4.5 inch barrel, I do believe. This is a 3.8 inch barrel, so you definitely get a more substantial overall size here as well. This is 17 round capacity. This is 16 round capacity, so in terms of overall firepower, not a big difference there. Both come with 2 magazines straight out of the box, so that wasn't a big deal. The standard 75B, well, let me go back. Both these are single action, double action guns. So the big strength with CZ in my mind is the trigger. It's a fantastic trigger. The P-07 Duty has what they call their Omega trigger in it, at least in the new models it does. The Omega trigger, from what I read, has fewer moving parts. It's a little smoother action. I don't notice a big difference between the Omega trigger and the P-07 and the standard trigger in the 75B, although you can pay a little more for an upgraded trigger in the 75B to get the Omega trigger. So back to the trigger, pretty much the same pull. I didn't find a substantial difference. I do feel that the single action might be a little bit crisper in the P-07 versus the 75, but not enough to really sway me one way or the other. One thing that probably I liked on the Duty version more than the 75 version was the inclusion of a tactical rail. I thought that was a big deal. As a home defense gun, I like the fact that I can mount a lighter laser to that. That'll pretty much accommodate anything. With this gun, I'm going to have to find something that's kind of specially made for it because there's no rail. You know, pretty difficult to find. I could probably go with some Crimson Trace grips, but that's going to cost me $300 or $400 if they're even available, just because these are a little bit different, you know, brands and models of guns, so it's going to be harder to find. The other thing you'll notice when I brought it up here is definitely the overall size. There's the guns lined up, you know, pretty much even with one another. The overall length of the 75 is maybe a ½ an inch longer total, but it's substantially narrower at the slide than the P-07 is. This is a fat gun. It's very wide. It's noticeably wider than this gun, or even some guns in the Glock or Smith & Wesson family. It's definitely wider. But it has a very nice fit to it. No complaints there. There's just some finish things that I really like on this gun. This gun, I really like the finish. It's the black oxidized coat or whatever they want to call it. Pretty hard finish. Really like it. Both guns, you'll notice, have the slide riding inside the rail as opposed to outside the rail on most guns, which is a different feature. I really like it. This one definitely has a little less felt recoil just because of the weight, so that was a consideration for me as well. This one has the decocker like I mentioned earlier. Pretty standard, you know, like the decocker. This one has a decocker as well, but it also comes with a safety kit, so I can pull the decocker out and just put a manual safety in there, which I dig also, especially if I'm going to shoot, you know, maybe IDPA or something like that with it. So, alright, so getting down to what determined which one I wanted versus the other. To be truthful, it was size, weight, and the sights that really led me to get this gun over this gun, and I'll show you why. First of all, in terms of weight, there is probably a half a pound difference between this gun and this gun. Obviously, because it's polymer versus steel, and that made a big difference to me. If I'm going to carry this for any length of time, it's going to be so much lighter than the other one. The other thing that I really like about this one, it has a very nice sight pattern, and I pick it up really easily. I like it. It's good for quick acquisition. If I'm going to shoot targets or IDPA type competitions, really like the standard sights that come with that one. This one has serviceable sights, I'll say, but the dots are very small, and it was a little harder for me to pick up, and I can't even do it justice here. They are tiny little dots here on the sights. That would be the first thing that I would want to replace on this gun, would be the sights. I just don't like them. I thought I did, and the more I got looking around at them, the standard sights that come on the police version, not a fan at all. You know, and like I say, the weight, the sights, and the overall size of the gun, it's just a little smaller. If I wanted to conceal it, it would be easier to conceal. Because of the weight issue, it would be a little easier to conceal than this one, and the overall size, but it's definitely wider, so that's going to be a little problem for me if I do want to go down that road. You know, ultimately, what's the cost of these two guns? This gun you're going to see retail in anywhere between the $460 to $490 range. This gun is going to retail somewhere in the $530 to $560 range, and maybe even a little bit more, depending upon which version you go with. Truthfully, being the CZ fan that I am, I don't think you can go wrong with either version. I can't see where somebody would say, well, I definitely like this one over this one, and that's a problem. I think they're both fantastic guns, and it honestly was a tough decision for me as to which one to pick, just because I really see pluses and minuses to both of them. Definitely less recoil here. It's a cooler looking gun, I gotta be honest. I love steel, but I have a lot of steel guns already. I honestly didn't own a polymer gun other than an XD, you know, and haven't bought one for some time, so kind of wanted to buy a polymer gun. But in terms of a high capacity 9mm, great guns. CZ USA, check them out. I think you do yourself a favor to give CZ a look, maybe over some of the other brands that are a little more common, just because it's different, it's cool, and you know, it's what everybody, you know, is always coming in here asking me in the shop. You know, Glocks are just kind of boring, Smith & Wessons are kind of boring. I want something a little bit different. I think this is a good way to go. It's different. It's Nothing Fancy second kind of cool that he always talks about, and I dig that. So anyway, we'll see you next time. Keith from Trigger Happy. Check us out. Check out CZ. You do yourself a big favor. Thanks a lot.